Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel for another video. Today's the day. I'm very excited. Been waiting for this moment for a very long time. We're gonna customize this guy. Now, I recently posted a video with just kind of my general thoughts about it, but I haven't talked about what I want to do to it yet. So we're gonna get this thing in front of the camera. We're gonna talk about the things that I want to customize, and then we're gonna take it apart and get to it. Hey friends, quick check-in here. So I decided to break this video up into two parts. Reason being, it's a ton of footage and I'm still working on the car even, but I wanted to get something out to you all because I know a lot of people are kind of waiting to see what I do, either for guidance on their own or to get ideas on how they might do it differently. And so with that, I don't want to keep you all hanging while I, take a couple weeks to finish this. Part one is going to have a couple of vital sections that people have really been asking me about. Now, the way I've been working on this car, I've been kind of jumping around all over the place. I'll paint something, wait for it to dry, sculpt something, wait for it to dry, and I go back to it. So you're going to see things looking like, wait, this was done here, it's not done there. That's why. But I have edited these into chapters. So everything for the canopy is going to be in one section. Everything for the cockpit is going to be one section. That way you don't have to jump around and scrub through the progress bar to see where things are at. It'll be nice and easy to reference that way. So I hope you find that helpful, and thank you for watching. First and foremost, the most glaring thing I want to fix about this is the canopy. Aside from the color, it is too tall. I want to change it. So my plan is to chop it and then basically fabricate a new roof for it. That's going to be very difficult. It's going to take some layering, a lot of sanding, a lot of gap filling. It's going to be very tedious. I'm not looking forward to it, but I am looking forward to the final result. Now, aside from that, the finish on this car, it's very glossy, right? It's cast in a shiny plastic. But here's the thing that a lot of people seem to be missing about this. The '89 Batmobile had a very specific paint job because they wanted it to look kind of like this live animal. I believe they used some kind of Japanese paint where you look at it from one angle and it has a green tint. And if you look at it from another angle, it's kind of a bluish purple tint, right? This is like a flat black for this Jada Toys one. If you look at the two of them, you can see the difference, right? And it's not just the shine, this is like different color of black. It's a cooler black than it is like a warm black, right? So I think that there was probably a lot of effort and consideration that went into picking this particular plastic to mold this thing in. And I think barring having that actual kind of paint that changes depending on the light, this might be the closest we're gonna get to it in the actual plastic. So for me, the problem is that it's just too glossy. So my solution is going to be to spray it with a clear matte spray paint to dull the shine and retain the color underneath. I think that's going to be the best of both worlds. Now, obviously I'm going to have to repaint this black first, and I'll have to use a glossy black, and then I'll have to hit it with the matte clear coat to achieve a matching finish. So hopefully that'll be pretty close. It'll definitely be closer than this. I'm going to paint this with some kind of greens and blues and purples. I'm actually going to get my airbrush out to do it, to give it that kind of heat weathered look. I plan to wire some lights into it. I'm not sure yet what the approach will be to the taillights. I also plan to cut these out and make the Browning 50 caliber machine guns. What I would like to do is something like what this Jada Toys version did, where it literally just flips over like that. I would like it to be all self-contained. So beyond that, there's going to be some general painting. I'm going to do probably some heat treatment stuff on the exhaust here. If I were better at like body work stuff, I would try to fill in these seam lines because they're not there on the original, and this one back here and stuff. But I'm not upset that they're there. I think they're not going to be very noticeable. Oh, one more thing. I am going to add the gas caps. So let's look at a few of the supplies that are going into this. All right, so here we have the material that I'm going to be using for the lenses on the front. This is from a pack of various sheets I got on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description below. This is some of the styrene that I have. So styrene is flat plastic sheeting. You can get variety packs of various thicknesses. I'm going to be using a thick version of this to make the top of the canopy. Now for the guns, I'm also going to use styrene. Barrels, I'm going to be using these styrene rods. Again, a various assortment of them. And I also have these straws. So some combination of these, I haven't quite figured it all out yet. And then these I picked up at a craft store. Essentially, they're these just kind of flat enamel circles. So I'm gonna paint these gray, put styrene tabs on either side of them so that they match the look here. And then those are just gonna go right there. And then of course I have the Krylon clear coat. I'll show that at some point, but I'm going to get this thing all done first and then paint it, because I don't want to end up scratching it as I'm working on it and have to redo it all. So I think that's the best course of action. All right, so I got the bottom off and I just wanted to show a little bit of the inside. So there were just screws that went directly into the bottom of the chassis piece up into the bottom of this. Pretty simple. This is the cockpit interior and it's very interesting. I wanted to show this part. It's screwed in. I haven't taken it out yet, but you can see those are the holes for Batman's feet. So if your Batman is getting stuck when you're trying to stick them in there, I've seen that in a lot of videos. People get them a certain distance in and they can't get any further. It is because those holes maybe aren't big enough. But yeah, I'm about to take that part off, and then that should help me remove the canopy. There's kind of a slide mechanism here that it's on. And then this exhaust piece here just like pops right out. It's hard to do with one hand, but it literally just came out. So as far as the tail lights, they are a separate insert, so that's good news. Okay, cockpit is out, and I wanted to show something kind of interesting here. So this goes in like that. You got your footholes for Batman right there. Now, because this comes out, and depending on what figure you're using, if you're using a Mezco or an SH Figuarts, which are smaller than the intended figure for this, you could conceivably rebuild this cockpit. You could cut this chair out. It's pretty, you know, it's not the thickest plastic in the world, but another couple of smaller seats in there. So, you know, just a little food for thought. Again, I'm not going to be doing that, but I think it is possible if you really wanted to put the work into it. And working on the interior now, and I wanted to show you a couple things. So I am planning to make this a two-seater here. First thing I did was to cut out the seat part here. So this top piece used to have the back of the seat attached to it, right? There were two little holes at the bottom right here, and it would tab in like that, right? And that's how this piece stays in place. So I cut that off, and I'm just gonna glue this to this because that's where it's gonna live anyway. I cut the bottom of the seat out. This was actually not as hard as I thought. I started heating it up with a blow dryer, which I should have been doing all along to make cutting this thing way easier. That was foolish of me, but and I realized these little control panel pieces that sit to either side were just tabbed in there. So I used a blow dryer on the back and some rubbing alcohol just to loosen up the glue, and I had to force them out. It wasn't so bad on this side, but you can see it really kind of dented it there. Not a problem, that's going to get covered up anyway, but I like that these come out, and so I want to actually use this potentially for the center console piece. With those popped out, what I'm going to do is put a piece of flat styrene in here, and that's why I needed to trim all this down, was to get this as flat as possible. And then I got these 3D printed seats off eBay. I'm trying to do this build without 3D printed parts, but I couldn't find any pre-made ones that, you know, for RC cars in a scale that would fit them in here. Because not only does it need to clear the width here, but it also needs to clear the height of the canopy. So that was a consideration I had to figure out. So let's see how this slots in. Yeah, the issue I was coming across was I knew I was gonna have to patch this hole at the bottom, which is gonna add some height to this, right? I needed to be able to get the seats in there and have enough width to work with, but also have them be able to sit a little bit higher and not hit this top piece. So now that that is accomplished here, the only issue is that this remnant of that seat is still there. The bucket seats are a little narrow because these are supposed to be for like a 116 to a 112 scale, because everything 110 scale was just too big. Since I'm using a Mezco Batman, the 89 112, I think that will be just fine for him. All right, this bad boy is officially a two-seater. What I did was pretty simple. Cut a piece of styrene, and I drilled some holes in the bottom of the styrene. You can tell I had to do it a couple times after I was troubleshooting a few things. Holes into the bottom of the chair, lined it up. I put some of this jewelry box felt on it. I used this on a couple different builds for carpet for the interior of vehicles. So that's just mounted onto that, nice and clean. Rests right in there, and then I'm gonna have to glue this panel down. I let the chairs have a little bit of swivel on purpose so that if I need to kind of maneuver them to get a figure in there or something, I can. Then for the steering wheel, everything is glued in super tight to this vehicle. So what I ended up doing here was just drilling with a big drill bit into the back of it, and it popped the steering wheel right out. And then essentially that's just gonna slot in and sit right there, and then I can glue this to the bottom here. I wanted to show you how I'm building out this bottom console piece. So essentially I glued it using some styrene pieces to patch it. It's kind of ugly, but it's going to get covered up, so it's not a big deal. And then I'm going to take some other styrene pieces. I use some of these little L bracket shapes because I'm going to be attaching more pieces this way. Paint it black just to round out this whole look and make it a little more substantial. And then this dash piece still slots in where it's supposed to. I also put more of that felt in here just to complete the floorboard look. I do want to have a little piece right there that is the shifter. It's like a half circle thing that has like a throttle look to it. Okay, working on the cockpit some more here, and I've made a lot of progress. This has been the most fun part, so maybe like the only fun part, to be honest, at this point. I love doing these kind of details, so this was a lot of fun. Firstly, I painted the gauges black. I left the edges silver. This interior is a combination of what McFarlane gave us, obviously, which is not accurate to any version of the Batmobile I've seen. Maybe it'll look like that in the Flash, but I think they just made it up to put something out. And then also a bit of the Hot Toys version, a bit of the Iron Studios version, and then also photos that I got from a website that somebody clued me into. It's called chickslovethecar.com, a site dedicated fully to the Batmobile. Currently, I'm building a center console and a gear shifter, and I wanted to show the process of that part. So with this, I did what I mentioned before where I added styrene to the sides. So I'm going to paint these black. And then I stuck this piece of balsa wood down the center and it worked perfectly. And then I angle cut this piece so that it will go up like that. And then for the shifters, my plan is I'm going to paint the heads on a couple of sewing pins and stick them in there. A lot of people use these for joysticks on miniature video game, like arcade cabinets. All right, I got the gear shifter done. I have these little wooden discs. Yeah, I got them at the craft store. So I cut them into these little kind of Pac-Man shapes. And those are basically going to sit at the end of this center console here. So I glued them separately so that they would fit the shifter in between. And then I painted the tops of those. All right, here's the finished cockpit. Very, very pleased with how this turned out. I used a piece of the clear plastic that I got for the headlights to make a kind of like screen. So I'm gonna backlight that so that it'll shine blue that way. I also did something kind of fun with the steering wheel. So I made it so that it turns. I put it in one of those straws, right? It's kind of ugly how it's glued on here, but it just needed to be functional. And I can also remove it. And then that way, if I want to put Batman inside of it, I have one less obstacle to deal with. And then once he's in place, I can just pop it back in and we're good to go. Beyond what you saw before, I also added this bit. I was looking at some photos and there's like some kind of control panel thing right here in the original. This is actually from a walkie-talkie. It was, I believe, a McFarlane Hopper Stranger Things figure. And I just cut out the section and put it there and it looks like it belongs there. I'm super, super happy with how that turned out. So yeah, cockpit is done and I have not put it in the car yet because I like to kind of save those bits for myself, like to kind of see the final thing when it's all put together. So that's gonna be a lot of fun once I insert it and, you know, close the car up and then open it and see what it looks like inside. So very excited that this thing is a two-seater now. I know these are not screen accurate seats. A lot of people love to point that kind of stuff out. Oh, it'd be cool if it had the real seats. Yeah, it would. It'd be cool if this car were the real Batmobile too, but you know, we're working with what we got here, so. The headlights also appear to be an insert, but behind them is more black plastic. So I think if I can pop that piece out, I can actually maybe just drill a hole through that and then put the clear plastic over it for the headlight. We'll see. I may need to just completely cut it out. We'll see, but. Okay, I got the headlights out and this was really tough. At first I tried taking an X-Acto knife and like just running it along the border over and over again. The next thing I did was I took just a small drill bit and I just perforated it with holes along it because there was no way I was going to cut through it today if I did it that way. So that helped quite a bit. Once I did that, I was able to cut through, you know, the tiny bits that were left and eventually get it out. And then I took an X-Acto blade and just kind of try to drag it along here as cleanly as I could. And then I did some sanding on this one. Okay, checking in with the headlights here. I've got these in and I actually used double stick tape to join the 2 different colors, and I'm really happy with the kind of little texture that it's got in there. Like it just kind of diffuses it and gives it like a, you know, the look of like a headlight that has, you know, the patterning etched into it. So I think that's really a happy accident there. I am currently building some little housings for the lights. Basically what I did is I took the headlight pieces that were in the car to begin with because they had a shape that I needed. And I love reusing pieces. Like if I can finish this thing without having trash from this car going into a landfill, I'm gonna be super stoked. Basically the plan is that this piece goes in here like so, and I'll glue that in place. But having that there, what that does is create like kind of a backing housing for this. And then I'm going to paint the inside part of it silver. The silver paint, that's going to help to reflect the light. And then I'm going to drill a hole right in here for the LED. I might do 2, I don't know, we'll see. But LEDs right in there, and then that's going to be our headlight. And the silver is going to help spread the light around on the inside. So, you know, it's these little details that really help level up the custom job on the vehicle. This isn't necessary, but I want to do it because I really want this to be as good as it can possibly be, you know, instead of just kind of slapping in some lights and going, yeah, it's got lights now. So, and that's why this is taking so long, but so yeah. All right, we're going to do a quick lighting test here. I get all of my lighting stuff from a company called Evan Designs. There's their information right there. They're out of Fort Collins, Colorado. They're really great. Their website is super easy to use. It breaks down different light types, colors, what you need to run them, the voltage, etc. So you literally just pick out the bulbs you want, make sure the voltage matches the battery pack and switch you get, connect the red wires and the black wires to their respective partners, and you're good to go.
Look to the light on the first day, Frodo.
All right, turn off the lights in here. I'm gonna give these a shot. I may need to go a little brighter, but let's check it out. Yeah, there we go. It's looking pretty good. Another quick thing, I'm taping this little mechanism to the underside because once the cockpit is out, it just wants to fall out, and I just figured it's easier to keep it in place. It's not super complicated, but a week later when I'm working on this thing, I might forget how it went, so I just like to do stuff like that. Canopy came out super easily. Once you get this front part popped out, you basically just kind of turn it like this and pull it out. It was held in by this kind of rail piece underneath it. That's how it slides, right? So once that's out, there's nothing holding it in anymore. I think that this kind of backs up my theory that why this thing is gray is because it's essentially painted over clear plastic. I mean, you can even see right here, there's a little clear spot. See where my finger disappears? You can see the light coming through it a little bit right there. Yeah, I think this is just painted over with maybe something that was supposed to be black and turned gray once it cured or something, and then they were just like, well, screw it. I mean, look, yeah, actually, you can see it right here. There's not even any paint right there. Okay, going handheld for a moment because I want to show what I've done so far. I've got it taped off how I want it. Now, I mean, you can already see just from looking at it like this, what an improvement that is. You know, I'm comparing it to this Jada Toys version that I have, which is, I believe, 1/24th scale. You can see there's this kind of bezel that comes up under here, and this one doesn't really have that. I think this is also proportionately like wider than this one. You can see it's kind of like curves inward up that way. This thing can only get so accurate, I think, just based on the way it's designed, but I'm gonna get it as close as I can, and I think this is a good start. I would like for the roof piece that I build to kind of overhang the windows like this one does. I'm leaving this back part because I do want it to fit with this, and making my own thing by hand to fit with that is gonna be incredibly difficult. I stand a much better chance of retaining this bit, and then I'm gonna carefully cut along here and along this line back here, and try to just remove this section and then create a new piece that goes in its place. Definitely a huge challenge ahead, but I'm already just happier looking at this thing with it like this. So I think that's really gonna make a difference. Anyone who says this thing is, oh, it's made of cheap plastic, oh, 60 bucks. Try cutting into it. Just try it. Try destroying any piece of this thing and tell me how cheap it is because this thing is pretty hardy, man. I had to drill more perforation holes just to kind of get through this thing because the gradual repetitive cuts weren't really working. But I just wanted to drop that in because it's funny that people are like, oh, this thing's cheap, oh, it looks like crap. And it's like, all right, give it a shot, see what you think. Now I realized I forgot to record any actual footage of the hole once it was cut, but here is a photograph of it. So you can see I ended up using the drill all along the way and then sanding down the really rough shaped edges. All right, we're in day 2 of working on this here, and this canopy has been very, very difficult. As you can see, it's still super rough right now, but I did find a nice little workaround that I was excited about. You know, I cut this and then I patched the opening with styrene, and then the idea is that I'm going to fill all this in with epoxy sculpt. But what I realized is that I had the piece that I cut out, and I hate wasting plastic. I mean, I hate that what I do with these things causes plastic waste at all. Like, it sucks, but you know, we live in a plastic world, unfortunately. I do my best to recycle extra things. I pay for an extra subscription service to recycle hard to recycle stuff. So I'm trying to do my part. And in that, I'm like, I don't want to just throw this chunk of plastic away. Now, this had more window leavings on it. So what I realized, though, is if I trimmed it down like I have here, I can use it as the front piece of the canopy. It saves me a lot of sculpting work, and it actually really helps the profile of this thing to look more accurate. So I've got the gap filled in with some epoxy sculpt. This is all hard now. It's been curing overnight. I plan to sand this all down and get it nice and smooth and modeled and everything. The tape is on here to protect the windows from like sandpaper scuffs and whatnot. The funny thing about this is, like, it's the right height. They just made it go straight out, and that's why it was too tall. But Batman can fit in here without any modifications. So I don't understand why they didn't just slope it down like it should be. But you can see, I mean, it's just looking way more like the Batmobile. So all right, it is the moment of truth for the canopy. It's ready for a coat of primer to see how I did. This thing was really hard to mask. I'm gonna hit it with a clear coat first. Hopefully that will fill in all the little, any little gaps I missed with the tape. And then when I hit it with black, it will not bleed through where it shouldn't. All right, forgive the background noise because I'm outside in my yard and people in my area drive like maniacs. So I have just finished sanding down the canopy. I tried wet sanding for the first time, and this, I mean, it was just a game changer. I assume it helps redistribute the pigment and the stuff you're sanding off, and kind of helps to fill in some of the little crevices and stuff. But you can see where it was uneven before, so I'm really happy with that. It's super smooth now. So I truly feel like a magician right now. Like, this is pretty smooth. So I am hyped on that. For the fact that I just like chopped this thing down and, jaggedly cut into it with a drill and a carpet knife and stuff, like this turned out pretty well. So here's a look at the canopy on the car itself, and I mean, what a night and day difference. I really believe that if you paint the canopy as it exists, it does look very good, but you can see what happens when you mod it and make it the profile it's supposed to be. It still has tape on it because I've got more painting to do on it. I've got to hit it with a gloss coat. I was scared the whole time I was doing it that I was going to screw this thing up permanently and I'd be screwed out of a Batmobile, but I knew I'd be able to pull off something, and I'm happy that it turned out this way. So in the next video, we'll go over the taillights. We're going to detail the metal work here. We're going to do the wheels, finish the canopy, give this thing a paint job, put it back together, get the interior going, wire up all the lights, and this bad boy will be done. All right, so that's gonna wrap up part 1 of this Batmobile build. I wanna thank you guys so much for watching. I also wanna give a quick shout out to everybody. My last video, I talked about some of the challenges of posting this kind of stuff to YouTube. And the support and positive messages I got in response to that were really something. I wasn't trying to solicit that, but receiving it meant the world to me, and I really appreciate everyone's support and just positivity. We're building a really fun community, I feel like, in the comment sections of these videos, where I'm seeing a lot of people coming back, and we get in touch on Instagram, and people are sharing their photos of their projects with me. We're exchanging information on different builds. Shout out to Felipe, who's literally building an 89 Batwing out of insulation foam and other parts, like from scratch. It's incredible. So yeah, I'm really grateful for that, and I really appreciate everybody coming through. It's a good time. If that sounds like something you're into, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and join in the fun. I mean, it really is becoming a cool thing, and I really appreciate it. And if I can ask a favor of you all, I'm putting a trailer for my graphic novel Retroactive at the end of this video. It's my kind of James Bond meets Groundhog Day time travel spy thriller. If you like movies like Edge of Tomorrow, Looper, Groundhog Day, James Bond, this is right up your alley. I'll put a link in the description below where you can get it on Amazon. It's also available at your local comic shops or bookstores. So that'll do it for this video. Until next time, keep your head on swivel.